Ranganathan, how do you feel about this? At one time, you had a problem with the way demo was undertaken. You had a problem, I think, with the process more than the intent. Do you have any such reservations today? I know 2016 now, very long time, and this tender was supposed to have been withdrawn from circulation, so people should have been expecting it. Many are saying this is a surgical strike on cash hoarders. Of course, the Congress and the opposition are attacking the government, and let's find out if they actually have a point. But what do you make of it, Dr. Ranganathan?
Rahul, there are multiple differences between this quote-unquote demonetization of tonight and the demonetization disaster, as I called it in 2016. I, in fact, wrote 5 articles, and I still feel that demonetization was an unmitigated disaster, one of the biggest disasters of independent India since independent India, and no one's head rolled. I don't know why. But be that as it may, there are startling differences. The first one, of course, is that this continues to be a legal tender. The second one is that you have till, I think, 4 months or 5 months to return this to banks or either to exchange it. The third is that this amount that is being, the currency that is being demonetized constitutes only 10% of circulating money. In the case of 2016 demonetization, 88% of the value of circulating money were 500 and 1,000 rupee notes. That would have been legal tender only for 4 hours after the Prime Minister announced demonetization. And then the process of demonetization, with which I had grave objection to, where there were long queues, people died, and it was abject. Nobody cared for the suffering of the common man because so much of money India was trading in circulation. That doesn't exist anymore, especially so with 2000, because now, since the advent of UPI, incidentally, in 2016, there have been, for example, I think in February, 7 billion or I think 8 billion transactions every day. So it's been a remarkable progress. That said, none of the aims of the original demonetizations actually were fulfilled. And that is why it was a disaster. This one is not going to be a disaster. I think this is something that was very logical because nobody could explain why, if you want to wipe out black money, you would actually introduce a currency that is double the amount of the 1,000 rupee notes with which you said where black money was being hoarded. So this didn't make sense then. It's continued, but people have moved away from physical currency. So I don't see anything that is wrong with this move.
Interesting. You don't see anything wrong with this move. Let me bring in some of the analysts now. Dr. Mehrotra, what do you make of this?
It's a fine move. It was expected. I think the government had already been giving indications. It was fairly illogical that it should have been introduced during demonetization in the first place. And it was worse that it was of a size that was not equivalent to the 1,000 rupee note. If it had been the equivalent size, then it could have been inserted into the ATM machines and it could have been used. Nevertheless, we have all that behind us. So we've already suffered very serious consequences of the demonetization. All that is behind us. This was inevitable. I don't think this is going to have any beneficial effects. It's just going to eliminate a large denomination currency, which was illogical to introduce in the first place. So it's good.
So you're saying that there's going to be no beneficial effect because we're getting a sense from certain quarters that this is a strike on cash hoarders, etc. Those people who were sitting on perhaps unaccounted wealth, which they needed to store. And we have seen seizures in the past few months, from politicians, etc., other government officials, where there are 2,000 rupee note bundles. So why would you say?
Fair enough. This kind of logic was flaunted at us even then. It doesn't carry much weight because you didn't do much damage to the black money then. There's plenty of black money around. In fact, the amount of cash that's available in the economy is not only much larger now than before demon, but as a proportion of GDP, it is much larger. So cash is a proportion of GDP. So there was a zilch impact on black money. And please don't offer us the sop that, we've moved to digital You could have moved to digital without doing the damage to the economy. The MSMEs were destroyed. The MSMEs have not recovered. The slowdown in the economy begins after 8th November 2016, and we are still suffering the consequences of that. So, any justification for demonetization, I think, as Dr. Ranganathan rightly pointed out, was post hoc, and it was an illogical measure and a disastrous measure for the ordinary people of this country.